record, and it's recording. Let's go share the screen. Everybody see that okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. All right. So let's do curating faith formation, content, programming, and experiences. So you get a sense of how you get this. This becomes one of the primary leadership skills of 21st century faith formation. I mean, no doubt in my mind about that. So here's the big shift that's taking place. So if you feel like you're being pulled a bit, well, you are. On the left side under current roles, this is the world I grew up in. I grew up in the world where you developed the content because content was scarce, not plentiful. You designed the program because programming was scarce, not plentiful. You managed the programming, which oftentimes meant setting up tables and chairs and taking down tables and chairs. And you taught and facilitated the programming. So that was the kind of skill set that we all learned or we grew up learning. Develop the content, design the program, manage the whole thing, teach and facilitate it. Well, now in the digital 21st century world, we're moving from those roles towards the emerging roles. But it's best to see this not as a binary choice going from one to the other, but as a continuum. We will still do creating, which is what the left column did. It created the content, it created the programming. And we'll also still teach or facilitate programs. But we'll do increasingly less of that as we move towards more fully 21st century faith formation. But we'll always create. What we're going to move to is more of curating or curation. So we're going to design new faith formation environments, which is architecture. So we'll take programs and we'll put them into different locales, one-on-one, individualized, out in the coffee shop, at home. So we'll develop a bigger platform, if you will, environments for our programming. And we're going to get good at that. We're going to get good at taking a program and putting it on into multiple environments. And we're going to get good at programming those different environments so that faith formation goes where people are, and we take down the obstacles towards participation because we are where people live. The second one would be designing digital platforms for faith-forming content. And this is building out our networks, whether it's one network and website or multiple networks and multiple websites, we'll find that. But the digital platform, which allows us the ability to flip the classrooms, extend the content out, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're going to learn how to curate content experiences. Everyone in our group, you've all done this, but you've done this in the Gutenberg era, where we've looked at program content that's primarily in print form or media that's primarily in films kind of formats. And so we've curated that. So we've looked at curriculum, we looked at programs, we've downloaded them, and then we select out of those the activities, the content that we want to meet our audience. In the digital world, that role grows exponentially. And so we're going to curate content and we're going to curate experiences, kind of matchmaking, because we have an abundance of content. So this emerging role of architecture, digital design, and curating, we're working with abundance, not scarcity. So we've got all kinds of content and experiences now in almost every single area. Most of it didn't even exist 5 or 6, 7, 8 years ago. So it's new. So how do you design faith formation in a world of abundance, not scarcity? Curation is what closes that gap. Beth Cantor has a wonderful article on content curation. Says, content curation is the process of sorting through the vast amounts of content on the web and presenting it in a meaningful and organized way around a specific theme. So here's what it's not. It's not a page of links to everything that you just found, because no one's ever going to click on those things. I worked with a group that was doing an adult faith formation leadership kind of website, and all they had was, here's an article, here's a link, here's an article, here's a link. There was no architecture. There was no presenting it in a way that made it really easy to work through. I've been curating the Faith Formation Learning Exchange. I'm going to redesign the whole thing in the next month, specifically because I want to make it simpler for people. So rather than here's a variety of research studies on adolescents or families, or here's the top 10, here's the top 5, and really focus them so it's organized in an easy to use way, and it's meaningful for people. So our work is sifting, sorting, arranging, and publishing information. And that's what we do. Everyone in our group, every church is a publishing house today, but it's a digital publishing house. And it's publishing material that it's curating from a variety of sources. Second, the content curator picks the best content that is important and relevant to share with their community. This is the matchmaking role, okay? It's the matchmaking role. We match people's needs with great content. It isn't unlike what a museum curator does to produce an exhibition. They identify the theme, they provide the context, they decide which paintings to hang on the wall, how they should be annotated, and how they should be displayed for the public. You're doing that on a digital platform. So the faith formation curator is a trusted guide who continually finds, groups, organizes, evaluates, connects the best and most relevant content experiences on a specific topic, Bible, morality, life issues, etc., to match the needs of a specific audience. I think these are the 4 primary tasks, and I list them as cyclic because I'm not sure you ever stop doing this. So research and organize resources, that's a 24/7 kind of thing. We do that every day. In our inbox come blogs, publication announcements, resources from organizations, newsletters. So we're researching and organizing our resources all the time. Then we're identifying the potential resources that match with programming. So that's our matchmaking. But there's always more than we need. So we evaluate those. I'll give you an evaluation checklist in a moment. And then we select and connect those resources to our programming. And that's when you published it on the network, on the website. So researching, identifying resources, evaluating them, and then selecting the best. Today, the nice thing is you don't have to settle for a resource. You can select the very best resource because usually you're selecting from high quality content, and that's really across the board. My 3 suggestions to building a curation system are really pretty simple. Start with people. Who are the trusted expert curators that you can turn to? Available on an email, available on a text message, available on a phone call. People who just do this all the time, and that you trust. You trust their judgment. You trust both in terms of content, quality of the resource, etc. Develop a list of high-quality online resource centers. You don't need a lot. Most of the time, when you look at some of the pages I've designed, like in the adult or family website, I can build a whole page out of 3 or 4 high-quality resource centers. Because once you've got a couple of good resource centers, you'll go back to them over and over again for content. And then subscribe to faith formation blogs and newsletters. Not too many to overwhelm you, but again, be selective because you want to be up to date on what's coming out new. And you want other people, quite honestly, to do your work for you. You want other people who are great curators to recommend things so you have to start from scratch. Because the last thing you want to do is curate by going to a Google search for content. Because then you're starting from scratch. So you want to start with recommended stuff that you can build off of. I see it as these 3 kind of concentric circles. Start with the resource people. They'll get you denominationally curated websites, religious organizations, etc. They'll get you that. And they'll recommend blogs and newsletters to subscribe to. So to get the people, the other ones seem to fall in place, at least for me, they do. And then you got resource centers. So this on Curating Faith Formation, the next month or 2 is going to get a whole new look and feel. But I started with some of the things that I really like. I put onto the Curating Faith Formation site. I've organized them in those big categories. So it's a starting place for you. This is a great blog, Building Faith. If you don't subscribe, I would definitely subscribe. It's buildfaith.org. It's from the Virginia Theological Seminary, their Center for Ministry of Teaching. I usually get probably 2 a week, maybe sometimes 3. But it's meant for faith formation leaders, and it is faith formation content and recommendations. I think those, for me, these are the kinds of sites you want to put right in front of you because they're going to be keeping you current on what's going on. Some people curate with some of these basic curation apps. Now, I do it the old-fashioned way. I set up on my email folders for the blog posts and the newsletters I get that I've organized into several, about a dozen categories. And so when things come in, I simply slot them into those folders. I don't even read a lot of it. I just put it in there and say, when I'm ready to look for something on Bible, I'll go to my Bible folder. So it's kind of the way you'd operate on your hard drive. I do the same thing with email. I put them into those folders. I can go back and look at those folders when I need to curate something. This is real-time curation. So these are apps. They work either on a mobile device and or a desktop. I think all of these work on both. So ReadKit is available for Mac and iOS. Usually they're about $5 or $6 for the app, and then you can always get the subscription and they update. So ReadKit's good for Mac and iOS. G2 Reader is good for PC and Android. And now it plays on your PC as well as the Android devices. Feedly is on every platform, so it's same thing. And you'll see how they're all set up. Along the left, let's see if I got a clear example. Yeah, along the left here, you'll see the feeds that are coming in from different sources. And then like your email, the next column, middle column, is kind of a little summary, and the right column is your window where you see it. They all kind of operate the same way. And Feedly looks like a little more like a website. So on the left are your people, the feeds that are coming in, and on the right, they're kind of summarized and much more visual. So it's a nice look. But it looks a little bit more like email. But what all these do is it gets the newsletters and the blogs out of your email into a separate application. So the only things you're getting here are blogs, newsletters, that kind of thing. And you just one-stop shopping. That you organize it chronologically. You can sort it. You can tag it. If you like working with apps and doing it this kind of curation, these work really, really well. And they're all about $5 or $6 to purchase. Bundler is a little bit different. Bundler is actually social bookmarking. So when you go to a website, and I like this better than a couple of the other ones. I subscribed to this for a while. This is, Bundler is, you go to a page and you really like a page and you hit the Bundler icon. And then it creates that that resource on your Bundler account. So you develop bookmarks. And then you could develop pages like you see here, where these are simply websites that Bundler is aggregating for you. So you could develop a topic for Bible study, a topic for adult life issues, a topic for milestones, etc. And what you'll do is you'll tag it when you see the website, and you'll be able to mark the folder you want, and then Bundler will allow you to create pages with that content on it. The nice thing, it's visual. The link is there, and you get a little description of what's going on based on from the website directly. It's available for for all the devices, but it plays on the PC as well as the mobile device. So those are you play around with them, and if it helps you with curating, go for it. But they're all current, and they're all have big user bases. So a lot of people do this in terms of curation. Here's my research checklist. Those are the places I would research. I'd be looking for content that comes out of this. Number one is my community. In other words, I curate the people in my community. Who are the great teachers, mentors, guides, etc., both in my congregation and in the wider community, in my synod, my diocese. So that's an important piece. In the old days, we used to do speaker lists when I worked in a diocese. But now that information is readily available on the net. Community programs, churches, agencies. What are people doing in the community? So what churches are sponsoring programs? Is there an agency doing a thing on life skills or for family programs? So I want to curate my community programs as well. I want to curate my educational institutions. What courses are and workshops and presentations are provided by our colleges and or seminaries in our area. Retreat and spiritual life centers, monasteries, do all kinds of programming. So once I get good at this, I'm going to find that most of the stuff that I really want to access and connect to are things I can curate rather than create. Denominational programs, museums, books, apps. I'm really amazed how many books now from the publisher, when you go to the publisher's website, will come with built-in study guides, either for individual or small group. That saves you a lot of time. Apps, audio podcasts, videos. So it's an amazing list of things you can curate. It's kind of your own checklist. But you have to evaluate all of it. So here's my evaluation list. And actually, if you start at the bottom and work your way up, it will be, you'll weed down, you'll kind of limit your list a little bit quicker. If it's a quality experience and it's easy to use, then it makes it into your next level. So that's cut number one, so to speak. You look at it and say, is this easy to use? Is it a high quality experience? And like the last one, can you apply it to daily life? If it makes that through that, then you go to the next piece. What's the content like? Biblical, theological? Is it appropriate? How does it address ethnic, cultural, and diversity, etc.? But if it's not easy to use in a quality experience, you're not going to want to use it anyway, no matter how good the content is. So we've all come across sites that are great content, but it's just boringly presented. So everybody needs their own criteria. It has to reflect your faith tradition. It has to reflect the developmental appropriateness, the age group or age groups you're working with, etc. But if you can get a top 10 list of evaluation criteria, as you work with your team, you can use these 10 key things to say, does this activity, experience, program, resource make it through our evaluation criteria? If you start with high quality sources, for example, content that comes from a publisher's website, content that comes from a reputable organization's website, content that comes from reputable people. If you start with that kind of starting point, evaluation becomes really, really easy. But if you take a much wider approach to curation, you're going to do a lot of evaluation. I'd rather start with things that are recommended, that come from really great providers of content that I can trust. If something comes from a publisher, I know it's edited, the theological biblical content is going to be good, et cetera, et cetera. It might not be right for what I want to apply it to, but I've already started with something that's just good to begin with. And this takes you through the process. So we research and organize. We're already really doing that. And then when the time comes, so at least 3 times a year, when you introduce a new season of programming, whether it's fall, winter, spring, or summer, you're going to identify your potential resources. You'll evaluate those for your purposes, and then you'll connect those resources by putting them on the website. That's the curation process. But again, the key thing in all of this, besides the technology and the rest, is if you can get 6 to 8 expert people and you can find those key websites and blogs and newsletters, it just makes your job a whole lot easier really quick. That's kind of the ABCs of curation. Questions, thoughts?
It strikes me, I was reflecting on this idea of curation last week and realized there's so much of my time that I already spend in curation, but it's curation of print resources.
Yes.
And in fact, we've had to move our resource library a couple of times as we've done some various construction projects around here. And each time it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And then just looking around your Curating Faith Formation website, and so there's just such a vast amount of resources that are out there. And I really appreciate what you have done for those of us that are in liturgical and mainline traditions, because there's a lot of stuff from other theological perspectives out there. They seem to have maybe gotten a jump on some of that maybe than some of the other traditions have. And so I just want to say I really appreciate your work in doing that. And I'm trying to make the shift from thinking about curating print or creating content to we said curate rather than create. That's a huge thing and a big shift, and I'm excited about it.
Good. It is a shift in our roles. Somebody in a workshop said, well, if I curate all this stuff, won't people think I'm not doing any work? And I said, write me after you've curated for a couple of months and tell me if it's not work. The shift is just start with, can I curate the content for this particular program, activity, whatever? And if you can't, then you move to the create side. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even when I'm especially talking to pastors and the rest, I'll say, basically a preacher, unless you're one of the top 20 preachers in the galaxy, basically most Sunday preachers curate their sermon. In other words, they're always working with some source material. I said, so it's not like now the product is unique, but we're always curating. And so when I talk to people about extending Sunday worship, I think of all the things that end up on the floor that you don't use in preparing a sermon. That's a starting point. Right. So I think we're used to curating and we just don't realize that's what we're doing. So when I first heard the word, about 9 or 10 years ago, when I started moving from the art world into the digital world, I said, I finally have a name for one of the things I do a lot of, which is resource stuff. The digital world, it was much easier in the print world. Now in the digital world, it's like, oh my God, look at all the, and every one of us has had this experience. We started researching something on the web, and about 20 minutes or a half hour later, we look up and say, how the hell did I get here? It's like, oh my God. I mean, I just spent a half hour, it disappeared into the ethos, into the ether of the world, and I'm someplace where I never intended to be, but I'm researching this particular thing, and this led to this, which led to this. Well, in the print world, that's it with a table of contents of a book. It's nice and linear and sequential, as far as my bookshelf. On the web, so that's why we need some guides, and so I will always recommend to people, by all means, introduce yourself to 5 or 6 people, and they're usually in our denomination, they're colleagues, they're people we meet at workshops and the rest. I always offer to do this for people. This is just someone said, well, what would you recommend for this? I usually have something already developed. So it's not like it's, I got to go finding it. The church Round Hill Community Church, for example, in my sample website, I just took the adult section and I just curated resources around, gratitude. For me, it was pretty easy. I already had a bunch of resources. I already kind of knew where to look. And I said, you can do this. But when you're stuck, just ask for help. Put the word out to your cloud of curators, with all due respect to the letter of the Hebrews. Your cloud of curators who can give you some, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Or I use this, and all of a sudden, okay, thanks, got it, stop. I have enough. And I think that's the secret. So if you look at the pages I've developed on the 2 sample websites, it's, except for the live presentation stuff, it's all curated content. And it comes from Vibrant Faith at Home. It comes from spirituality and practice. It comes from Enter the Bible at Luther Seminary, Working Preacher. I mean, I'm not worried about any of the content because I know professionals are doing it. Whether I use it or not, that needs my people. But yeah, it's different. But it's freeing, by the way. It's just fun to be able to give people a variety of ways to learn the same thing or experience the same things and not have to be tied down.
Right.
John?
Breen.
I resisted the term curation for a long time because of the museum aspect of it.
Yeah.
I had friends who were pushing me toward it for years, and I very much resisted it. And then my husband sat me down with a book, which is called The Art of Curating Worship by Mark.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a pastor, so I am always curating worship. Yep. So it really did speak to me, but it's a short book that actually talks about the paradigm shift,
yep.
which was exactly what I needed to be able to make that paradigm shift, and then begin to express curation on my own. And then the other thing I wanted to say was I set a time limit for curation sessions that there are within my denomination. I'm ELCA Lutheran, and we don't have a lot of free resources put out by our denomination. So there's a lot of searching that I do have to do if I want a denomination-specific resource. So I put a limit on it. If I have seen 16 YouTube videos on how to cross yourself, but they're all extremely Catholic, right? Because they would be.
Yeah.
And I need it to not be Catholic. That's the point at which I create the minute and 20-second video and post it to YouTube myself.
Perfect.
But there is a point at which you do stop going down the rabbit hole and just say, can I make this an hour? Or am I going to spend 4 more hours trying to curate this very specific thing I'm looking for? So
if I was in Green Spot and I was, I would then go look for some people who know how to video, and then I would do it. But if it's up to me to video it, oh, no chance. No chance. Someone's got their sound on. Okay. So that's where you bring in some of your technical experts to help you. I can do the content, but if you want a high quality video from me, I don't think so. But your website, your worship website is a great example. I think we showed it last time. Your worship website is a great example of curation.
Yes.
And you've got some places you go to every week, and then you've got some new things week by week. And
right.
Nice blend.
Right.
You got to start from scratch every week.
No, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah. Yep. Other thoughts about curation? I silenced you again? Okay.
John?
Yes.
It's Rosemary. We keep seeing I keep seeing a telephone on the screen.
Someone's on the phone.
Is Leaf? It's not Leaf trying. Oh, I see.
Yeah, no, it's just somebody connecting by phone. So they're hearing us, but not seeing us.
Yeah, I think that's where the background noise is coming from. Whoever's on the phone. I don't know if there's a way for them to mute
the phone.
Their microphone on the phone.
Or yeah. Well, we're gonna take a stretch break so people can kind of attend to those kind of things. So far, so good. Second half is kind of updates from you. So I have 2:26 on Eastern time, so 25 after the hour. Let's take a 10-minute break. Come back at about 35 after, and we'll just any order we want to do. But just give us just a thumbnail of here's what I'm working on. If you'd like me to put your website up, I can do that. So just let me know when we're ready. But take a little stretch. Come on back.